Hello and welcome back to Vizura Recaps. The film begins in LaGrange, Ohio, where we meet our protagonist, Curtis LaForge. He's currently having an apocalyptic dream about a deluge made of motor oil. He then wakes up to see that it is a sunny day. Curtis lives with Samantha, his wife, and Hannah, their deaf daughter. Samantha is a housewife who spends the majority of her time caring for her daughter. Curtis, who works for a construction company, provides the family with income. He is working at a construction site one day when it begins to rain, causing his task to be cut short. As a result, he and his co-workers go to a bar and drink some beer. Meanwhile at home, Samantha and Anna observe the rainstorm and practice spelling some words in sign language. Curtis later travels to DeWart's house to drop him off. They converse about their lives in the car, and DeWart believes Curtis has a good life. However, the latter indicates that things are not always as they appear. Curtis arrives home and checks on his mute daughter, only to have his wife give him a surprise embrace from behind. She informs him that Hannah still finds it difficult to relate to other kids. But he tells her not to worry, that in time everything will work out. A strong storm forms in the skies the following day when Curtis is removing some rubbish from the area. A lightning bolt hits the earth shortly after, startling his dog Red. It escapes its chain, lunging in at Curtis and snapping his right arm. That is when he finds himself in bed, realizing that it was just another nightmare. Later, when they are having breakfast, he worries for his daughter who is playing with Red and removes her from the game. He snaps at Samantha for trying to step in, and he leaves without eating breakfast. Curtis appears preoccupied even at work, as evidenced by his constant attention to his right arm. He notices a flock of black birds in the sky while he is at work at the building site. He inquires about the same matter with his colleague, but the latter is unperturbed. Curtis and his spouse attend their daughter's school meeting that afternoon, when they receive a briefing on sign language that they can utilize with their kids. Later that evening, Curtis has another awful dream in which he and his daughter are involved in a car crash brought on by a lot of rain. When he emerges from his trance, he witnesses two men attempting to break into their car outside. Subsequently, one of them kidnaps his daughter, and the other chokes him from behind. With a start, Curtis breaks out of the dream, panting for breath. His face shows how anxious and depressed he is due to these recurrent dreams. When Samantha notices this too, she wonders if he's unwell, but he tells her he's not. His wife and daughter then leave the house to attend a school fair, while he remains at home. Since it is his day off, he begins to build a fence in their backyard to keep his dog safe. When he's finished, he glances at the trash heap and wonders how he'll get rid of it. Just then, his gaze is drawn to a door leading to the basement. He finds the key and uses it to measure something. Samantha and Hannah return home as dusk falls, wondering as to why their dog is kept outside. Curtis doesn't elaborate, only noting that he prefers it that way. Following that, he has another disturbing nightmare, in which it is raining and his daughter is peering out the window. He is surprised to discover a stranger standing outside their house as he approaches her. The entire earth begins to tremble, and everything levitates as if the house is about to collapse. He wakes up in his bed at this point, realizing he has peed his bed. Samantha walks into the room to check on him, but he stops her from approaching, most likely due to embarrassment. After cleaning the bed linens, he and his daughter walk to a local library and read some books regarding mental illness. They buy a bunch of canned meals on their way back for whatever reason. Curtis cleans the cellar and stores the foods he brought as night falls. When he doesn't return home for a long, his wife detects light coming from the basement through the window. Curtis ultimately goes to see a doctor one day, exhausted by all of these apocalyptic visions and increased insomnia. He admits that he has been having problems sleeping for the past 4 days. Hearing this, the doctor prescribes a moderate sedative and refers him to a Columbus psychiatrist. Curtis then goes to the pharmacy to get the required sleeping medication. Samantha, on the other hand, goes to the insurance company to inquire about the finances for their daughter's operation to restore her hearing. Curtis's company turns out to be a dependable insurance provider that will cover the entire cost of the operation, much to her joy. She then returns home and tells her husband the good news. Curtis is overjoyed, and it's the first time he's smiled in days. He wakes up feeling amazingly well the next morning, most likely as a result of the sedative he took the night before. Even his wife notices the difference in his appearance. His hallucinations, however, continue. He hears thunderous sounds while working even though the sky is clear. This makes him quite nervous, prompting him to dash to the garbage can and puke. He quickly departs the building site and decides to pay a visit to his mother, whom he hasn't seen in quite some time. His mother, Sarah, has paranoid schizophrenia, which manifested itself in her, about the same age as Curtis. Concerned that he may also suffer from this disease, he inquires as to if she has any frightening nightmares. In response, she claims to get hallucinations from unknown people who whisper in her ear. Curtis's mental health deteriorates over time as he battles to discern his hallucinations from reality. One day, he devises a plan to construct a disaster shelter and calculates the funds required to purchase the necessary equipment. When he realizes he cannot afford such a large sum of money, he goes to a bank and obtains a home improvement loan without informing his wife. He also jeopardizes his construction work by stealing equipment from the company to build his refuge. When he tells DeWard about his plan, the latter is skeptical about his mental health, but he eventually agrees to assist in any way he can. As soon as Samantha and Hannah leave for the school fair the next day, Curtis summons DeWard with the corporate dozer, and the two begin construction work in the backyard. Curtis's wife returns home during the digging process, astonished and understandably furious. That night, the pair gets into a furious disagreement, which intensifies when Samantha learns about the home improvement loan he took despite being aware of their financial difficulties. She wants explanations for everything, but he departs, claiming that there is nothing to clear. Curtis becomes anxious and takes more than the prescribed dose of the sedative. As a result, he had a seizure at midnight, causing Samantha to fear. She rushes to phone the emergency services, but he refuses to let her. He finally talks to his wife after he recovers, confessing everything he has been going through for the past few months. He states that it's not just ordinary dreams, but sensations as well. His wife listens to him, but she doesn't understand what he's saying. Curtis and Samantha take their child to the hospital the next day to schedule her cochlear implant operation. Following a brief examination, the doctor informs them that the surgery will be completed in 6 weeks. Curtis is increasingly absent from work over the next few days, as he works to build up the shelter. When he arrives at work one day, his employer summons him to his office and communicates his displeasure with his recent performance. He offers a warning while also instructing him to make up for lost time. Curtis is visited later that evening by his younger brother Kyle, who has learnt about his recent odd conduct from his wife. He inquires about his health, to which Curtis responds that he is okay. After a brief frosty exchange, Curtis begs him to take Red with him because he no longer wants the dog. That night, he has another frightening dream in which he finds his wife standing in the kitchen soaking and staring at him without saying anything. He is also alarmed since she is holding a knife. Curtis's boss pays a visit the next day and notices the backyard shelter he built. He is also aware that Curtis is secretly utilizing work equipment for personal purposes. So he terminates him and only provides him with 2 weeks' worth of medical insurance benefits. He also informs Curtis that he has placed DeWard on 2 weeks unpaid administrative leave for breaking the company's standards. When Curtis tells his wife the news, she becomes enraged and slaps him for losing his work at such a critical moment. Samantha can't stay angry for much longer after learning that Curtis still loves and cares about Hannah. She approaches him and recommends that they postpone their scheduled beach trip in order to fund their daughter's surgery. She also requests that he look for another employment as quickly as possible, to which he agrees. Family attends a social gathering at the Lions Club in the next scene in order to restore some feeling of normalcy to their stressful and more isolated lives. Curtis is approached by DeWard, who blames him for his job suspension when they are having some quality time together. He punches him in front of everyone in an outburst of wrath, resulting in a physical conflict between the two. Curtis, enraged, knocks DeWard to the ground, tosses a table, and unleashes a terrifying verbal diatribe on everyone in the room. He predicts a severe storm and insists that none of them are prepared. Samantha is concerned to see her husband in such a state, but she tries to calm him down before bringing him home. A sudden emergency alarm startles the family at midnight, driving them to rush into the hastily constructed bunker. Curtis meticulously applies anti-toxic masks to his family members while they wait for the storm to pass. Samantha wakes up her husband the next day and asks him to open the door, claiming that the storm has passed. Curtis, on the other hand, is so concerned with his hypothesis that he is afraid to step outside. Despite this, she manages to urge him, eventually convincing him to unlock the door. As they walk out, they are greeted by a bright blue sky with no trace of a disaster. They also witness neighbors clearing up broken tree limbs and other yard debris while power company vehicles restore power down the street. Curtis is filled with remorse for pulling his family into his delusions as a result of this tragedy. He ultimately agrees to consult a doctor because of his remorse. During his first appointment, the psychiatrist informs him that he must cut links with the refuge he built in order to avoid fantasizing. The doctor also urges the pair to go ahead with their yearly beach holiday. Curtis will need psychiatric care in an institution distant from his family after they return. Curtis is seen constructing sandcastles with Hannah on Myrtle Beach while Samantha cooks for them. During their beach time, Hannah signs the word storm, pointing out in the distance. A thick oily rain begins to fall as Samantha steps out of their beach cottage, smearing her outstretched palm. To her surprise, she also sees huge storm clouds going over the water. The tornado-like waterspouts reach the ocean's surface and the tide recedes as a tsunami approaches in the distance. At this point, she recognizes that her husband was correct the entire time. The film closes as the two exchange glances and flee back to their sanctuary. That was the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more material like this, and please press the like button to assist us. Also, if you want us to recap your favorite movie, leave a comment. Take care until the next time.